I am not a mystically inclined person. I hate the phrase, everything happens for a reason. Nevertheless, I have been subject recently to premonition dreams. There may be some scientific basis for this, actually, at least according to the lecture on physics my 8-year-old gave me last week. Start with the theory of relativity, she said, the stuff about time and the speed of light, so the train gets to the station a millisecond after or before it gets to the station, rippling the surface of reality like a stone in still water or heat wave on a desert road, or the theory of relativity to the idea of the real world. As a result, per Einstein, things that happen in the future can affect the present, including my dreams. That's the theory anyway. But she, my 8-year-old, also says there's a box that may be occupied by a cat named Schrödinger or owned by a Schrödinger, except the cat doesn't exist until you open the box and see it with your own eyes. I don't know why it's in the box. I'm not even sure there is a box. It's also possible my 8-year-old daughter is 35-year-old daughter, because it all sounds like pretty spacey stuff for an 8-year-old, but I digress. My subject is premonition dreams, the stone in my still water. I had one 2 days ago. I own in reality a cabin in the woods, a folly of youth. I've been trying to sell it for years. In my dream, I arrived at the cabin and found a person living there, a shaggy hippie as friendly as a dog, although I suspected this was because he was squatting in my cabin and actually had a ugly, selfish side that inclined him to slow-motion home invasions instead of work and children in an ordinary life. His cat had a litter in my basement, which in the dream was under pilings at the seashore. Waves broke and the surf ran up towards the kittens, but he ignored it, the water and the potential danger, and I found this annoying. My cabin has no basement, and I didn't have a good feeling about the canvas sack and the rocks either. When I went back upstairs, the room was filled with artists. They were working at long tables. I didn't know what they were making, but the room had that busy workshop feeling. All my stuff had been carefully preserved in plastic cases and shoved to the side. I was alarmed. Squatters can be a problem with remote cabins. A lawyer once warned me that if someone lived in my cabin for a long time without my knowledge, he could sue and take possession. The squatter, not the lawyer. He used a legal phrase, I can't remember, the lawyer, not the squatter, something like imminent domain? Imminent? Anyway, I told the shaggy bum and the artist I wasn't going to throw them out immediately, but would have to consider my options. And then I felt so sad and lonely and empty. I looked down at my hands and saw that they were starting to disappear. Already transparent, the fingers blinking out one by one. And the dream fizzled out somewhere around there. But all that day, anxiety plagued me. The next morning, I hurried up to the cabin, the real cabin. No one was there. It was as empty as it always was. Pictures of my children, by my children, and for my children hung on the walls, yellowing with age. My wife's ashes were still on the shelf above the soup cans. To be perfectly honest, I was disappointed until I noticed a hole in the back window. Something shattered it, and a piece of glass fell out to shatter more completely on the stoop. Perhaps a bird flying into it, or a child across the river playing with a slingshot, if children still play with slingshots. Maybe the foundation of the house shifted. In any case, there was a hole, and the screen was torn. A hand could have reached in, unlocked the window. More likely an animal. Readjusting my expectations, I inspected the cabin again and found many traces of the culprit. teeth marks on a cereal box, contents vanished, a hole in my cylinder of Tang, contents vanished, my tin of Splenda on its side, and every one of those helpful little yellow packets shredded, contents vanished. The ancient gingerbread house my 5-year-old put together with so much glue we said it would outlast the pyramids, vanished. So much lost, so much stolen. And when I bent to look, a profusion of little black turds. Isn't this just like life? You expect a shaggy mystic and a wild collection of artists. Instead, you get vermin in a pile of turds. I considered my options. For years, people had been telling me to get a varmint gun, as the locals call them. I made inquiries at the local Walmart, where a suitable one can be had for under $400. Alternately, I could get a caretaker. This, too, has often been suggested. Perhaps one of the younger hippies who still appear on the streets of the college town 10 miles north so many years after the world rewarded their naivete in the usual way. Perhaps over coffee in the cabin before I evicted him for the weekend and he went to his girl's house, he could explain quantum physics to me. Or maybe I'd get one of those neo-hippie girls and she would listen to my stories with a kindly smile, and when I left for the city, she'd give me a hug and call me Gramps, and I'd carry her perfume with me to the car. I did none of these things. I put out traps and called a repairman who turned out to be a repair woman. Your Ed's Odd Jobs, I asked. It's short for Elizabeth, she said. Ed is short for Elizabeth? She just looked at me, unblinking and unsmiling, stocky with shaggy curls and a pale, splotchy face, dressed head to ankle in Carhartt, Red Wings taking over from there, a townie, I assumed. But she fixed the window fine, and listened to my dream without seeming too bored. The connection is the shaggy, I concluded. Instead of a shaggy hippie and shaggy artist, I got a shaggy field mouse infestation, she said. I can't believe field mice can climb up that door. Believe it, she answered, a woman of few words. She pointed at the bottom of the door where a hole was beginning to appear, surrounded by the marks of small, sharp teeth. That raccoon is going to get through pretty soon, too. On the subject of varmint guns, she was equally non-committal, but I detected a fierce, fuming disapproval, evidence of a sentimental side, unexpected. In an infusion of sympathetic feeling, I gave her too large a tip, which she gruffly refused. You pay me to do a job, she said. In that moment, I saw it all. Not towny, gowny. Stubborn, suspicious, sensitive, wounded, solitary, fiercely independent, often pitied and painfully aware of it. Domestic abuse in the past, likely. The kind who took up karate or target shooting to calm her nerves. I didn't mean to insult you, I gushed, aghast. She nodded and got in her car without looking at me again. That night I sat in the cabin by lamplight, washed by that same lonely feeling, la petite mort of my premonition dream. When I finally fell asleep, all my things had vanished from the cabin, but this time there was no shaggy man and no artists. I woke up covered in sweat. But when I got up, I found a box outside the glass door. I could hear her mewing outside, and I knew instantly who had left it. There was no mystery, just another lost child with good intentions. But I made my coffee and sat in the kitchen table, savoring the tiny doubt, glancing now and then at the box. I knew what was in it, but there was also a possibility, however slim, that something else might emerge. According to my 8-year-old, my 30-year-old, my 40-year-old, it could be anything. Even a female repairman in a wilderness of artists. Nothing will be certain till I open the box.